They told us Europa was dead, just another frozen moon among Jupiter's children, silent, inert, sterile. Beneath its vast, glacial crust lay nothing but ancient ice and saltwater pressure. That's what the simulation said. That's what every prior mission reported. But the data from Probe Hermes-X said otherwise. For weeks, its instruments returned signals no algorithm could interpret. Rhythmic pulses, electromagnetic distortions, heat spikes too uniform to be natural. Something was moving down there. Something was alive, or had been. So they sent us, 10 specialists. Xenobiologists, quantum engineers, tectonic analysts. A joint Earth-Mars mission, representing the best minds across both planets. Our orders were simple. Drill, observe, confirm. Get to the ocean floor, extract data, and return. We arrived on Europa under the pale shadow of Jupiter, where the sun was a dim ghost, and the ice beneath our feet groaned like it remembered warmth. Borehole 17A was a chosen descent site, its core temperature measured just high enough to suggest geothermal activity, yet no known fault lines explained it. We drilled for 21 days. The ice was dense, unyielding, as if it didn't want to be opened. There were times we lost signal, and once our instruments showed seismic movement, but no quake followed. One night, Dr. Kavinsky claimed she heard something echoing from below. Not vibrations, not pressure shifts, but a voice. We laughed, blamed the stress. Europa's isolation does things to the human mind. But then the readings changed. The pulsing we'd tracked for weeks, once intermittent and random, became regular. Every 11 minutes on the mark, like a heartbeat, and embedded within it were data spikes that matched no Earth origin frequency, yet still felt human. I ran them through our linguistic filters, and what emerged froze me in my seat. A message, a single line, repeated endlessly across every frequency, encoded in quantum harmonics. You are late. I didn't tell the others immediately, not out of fear, out of disbelief. We'd all studied the lost colony theories, the hushed rumors of Europa Icarus Base, destroyed nearly a century ago. Official reports blamed tectonic collapse, but some classified archives hinted otherwise, that maybe the colonists had found something, that maybe they hadn't all died. The signal bore quantum signatures, ones we matched to DNA-locked transponders issued to the original Icarus team. People long declared dead, archived, their memory enshrined in crystalline tombs. And yet, there they were, calling from below, or something wherein their voices was. The deeper we went, the warmer the readings became, not geologically, but organically. The ocean wasn't just warm. It pulsed, like a womb, a rhythm not made by currents or pressure, but intent. And then we heard it, all of us, at once, through steel and ice and vacuum suits, deep in the crushing blackness. A whisper that echoed not through our ears, but our bones. You are late. That was the moment I knew we hadn't discovered Europa. It had been waiting. We made contact with the subsurface ocean on the 21st day. The final layers of ice gave way in a slow, almost reluctant yield. When the drill punched through, the temperature surged, not enough to suggest magma vents, but unnaturally steady, like the sea was regulating its own climate. We lowered our submersible, Abyss Echo, into the breach and descended. It took 7 hours to reach the ocean floor. Nothing could have prepared us for what we saw. The terrain wasn't flat or barren, as predicted by topography scans. It was sculpted, undulating rises of dark stone spread like vertebrae across the ocean bed, and there were geometric patterns etched into the silt that defied tectonic or aquatic logic. Some part of me whispered that they weren't markings, but instructions, remnants of an intelligence that didn't forget. Then came the pulses. They started as gentle electrical flickers across our equipment, like static, but quickly intensified. Instruments lost calibration. Compasses spun wildly. Our sonar began to return impossible readings. Structures that were there one moment and gone the next, as if space itself was folding. The strangest part wasn't the interference. It was the sound. It didn't enter through the ears. It bypassed bone and blood and went straight to the mind. A deep harmonic thrum, like the song of a vast, ancient whale singing in the dark. But beneath the music was a message, low and rhythmic, unmistakable in cadence. You are late. Over and over again. Not angry, not urgent, just disappointed. At 7:43 Universal Time Coordinated, we found the source. We had crested a ridge when the seafloor fell away into a vast depression. At the center of that dark basin, lit faintly by bioluminescent algae and the ghost light of our flood lamps, was a structure, a dome, perfectly spherical, at least 800 meters wide. It pulsed with internal light like a heart, its surface covered in latticework resembling metallic coral. Too symmetrical, too intentional to be natural. We thought it a geological freak, a rare thermal bloom or mineral formation born of Europa's volatile underice tectonics. Then it opened, no grinding, no warning, just a seamless, silent parting like the iris of an ancient eye. The petals of the dome retracted in elegant synchronization, and inside was a city, not ruins, not collapsed stone, a living, intact metropolis. The architecture glowed softly in hues of violet and silver, as though powered by something deeper than fusion. Towers spiraled like DNA strands. Pathways curved with gravity-defying grace. The air or water around it shimmered, as if time flowed differently inside. And in the heart of the city, suspended by threads of unknown energy, stood a spire taller than any we'd seen on Earth. We weren't looking at alien ruins. We were looking at a civilization waiting to wake up, and we had just rung the doorbell. Ruins, yes, but no mere accident of geology or time. The structures we encountered within the dome were ancient, yes, but undeniably constructed with purpose. Pillars twisted skyward like frozen lightning, etched with patterns too complex, too deliberate, to be the result of mineral erosion. There was language in those lines, glyphs that danced across the columns in a flowing sequence that shifted slightly each time you looked away. Archways shimmer with a cold blue glow, lines of plasma hovering just above the material surface, like circuitry threaded through stone. The symmetry, or rather the lack of it, was unnerving. Nothing mirrored, yet everything was in balance. Architecture designed by minds unconstrained by our three-dimensional limitations. It felt like walking through a frozen equation written by gods. Then we found it. The chamber was vast, carved from obsidian-like stone that swallowed light and sound. At its center stood a statue, 10 meters tall, humanoid, yet clearly not human. It was carved from a single translucent crystal that pulsed with an inner light, dim and steady like a heartbeat in slumber. The figure's arms were outstretched in welcome or warning. No one could agree which. Its face bore a serenity that was almost sorrowful, eyes closed as if in meditation. Despite its age, there was no dust, no decay, only a quiet power humming beneath the surface. Time had not eroded this place. It had respected it. Beneath the statue was a circular basin, a shallow pool filled with bioluminescent liquid, radiant in a spectrum the human eye could barely process. It didn't cast shadows. It seemed to fold light into itself, distorting the space around it ever so slightly. Instruments went wild. The same harmonic frequency, the one we'd heard since entering the ocean, emanated from the pool. Only now, the phrase was clearer, closer, almost intimate. You are late. The others hesitated, caught between fear and fascination. I, Dr. Alara Mintz, xenobiologist, stepped forward. Compulsion, instinct, curiosity. It's hard to say what moved my feet. I expected resistance from the fluid, some kind of viscosity. Instead, my fingers passed through it like mist. There was no splash, no displacement. It was not water. It was memory. In an instant, I saw flashes. Visions burned into my mind like afterimages from a dream. Beings made of light and sound. A city that sang. Stars being born and devoured. A council of entities older than the solar system, bound by an oath to watch and wait. And at the center of it all, the statue's face, open-eyed now, watching me. The words returned, not through sound, but thought. You've come to open what was sealed, to awaken what should have been forgotten. But you are late, and now others are listening. I stumbled back, breath ragged, tears in my eyes. not from fear, but from understanding. Whatever had built this place hadn't vanished. It had left something behind, and it had just noticed us. It wasn't a dive in the traditional sense. When I stepped forward, it didn't feel like I entered a substance at all, but a memory. The fluid in the basin responded, not like liquid, but like thought remembering how to move. It shimmered, vibrated with a resonance that tingled along my bones, and then it welcomed me. There was no resistance, no splash. I simply sank, not downward, but inward. I didn't fall into the pool. I fell through time. It wasn't a vision. It was immersion, total and absolute. The feeling of breath still existed, but the lungs no longer mattered. The body faded. The self expanded. First, I saw Earth, not through history books or data reels, but as a living thread of consciousness. Our wars, our monuments, our music, our flaws. I witnessed the dawn of fire, the sound of the first violin, the quiet death of languages no one speaks anymore. Every tragedy, every spark of brilliance. Humanity in its full, brutal, beautiful spectrum. And yet it was not the center of the vision. It was only the beginning. Then the focus shifted outward, to Europa, but not the cold, silent moon we'd study from orbit. I saw it as it once was, long before our species had scraped sparks from stone. Warm seas beneath a brighter sun. Not oceans filled with fish or forests, but something more abstract, an ecosystem of sentient coral that moved slowly, patiently, shaping cities that hum with ideas rather than sound. There were no individuals, no governments, no war, just awareness. Distributed thought flowing through oceans like blood through a body. Europa wasn't inhabited, it was alive. The entire moon was a single, contemplative organism. They had discovered something vast, waiting in the dark between galaxies. Not malevolent, not benevolent, simply awake and observing. The Europans made a choice, not to run, not to fight, but to sleep, to encode their minds into the coral structures, to rest until the time came to act, until someone arrived who could understand them, communicate, awaken them, not with tools, but with shared memory. That someone was meant to be us. But we came too late. I snapped awake, or thought I did, my body convulsed on the icy floor of the chamber, lungs gasping like they'd been forgotten for days. The others were gone. The pool was still. The glow had faded. The dome was silent. And the statue was no longer there. In its place was a void, a perfectly shaped absence, as if the space had decided it no longer wished to host matter. The outlines of its feet were still etched into the floor, but there was nothing else. Only the soft hum of frequencies too low for ears, too deep for machines. Something had changed. Something ancient had shifted. The Europans were no longer sleeping. And something deep beneath Europa's crust was stirring and listening. When I opened my eyes, my first instinct was a call for the team. But something held my voice in my throat. Something instinctual, primal. The kind of silence that wraps around you when the world itself is holding its breath. My teammates were there, but not as they had been. They stood still, utterly motionless, scattered across the chamber like statues. Eyes open, limbs slack, faces blank and glassy, as if gazing into something beyond the chamber's walls. Then they began to hum. It wasn't a conscious sound, not a tune they knew. The vibration emerged from their throats in unison, a deep, resonant frequency that matched the pulsing echo I'd felt in the pool. It reverberated through the coral walls, the columns, the air. The chamber itself resonated in reply. And that's when I felt it, another presence. From a vast trench beyond the dome, deep within Europa's alien sea, something stirred. It didn't swim. It unfolded, gracefully, effortlessly. The ice and pressure did not restrain it. It moved like an idea remembering its shape after eons of rest. At first, I could not define its form. It had no edges, no symmetry. It shimmered as a composed of memory and fluid geometry. It did not shine, but somehow illuminated. As it approached, it projected not images, but sensations. Not words, but raw truths. It was remembering, and it was letting us remember too. The thoughts it shared came in waves. sorrow for the stars extinguished before their time, joy for the first notes of language sung beneath Europa's waves, mourning for the silence it had endured, and awe at seeing us humans, so fragile, so destructive, yet so curious. They were called the Memnari, not a species in the way we understood, but gestalt of minds bonded through time and purpose. Sentient architects, guardians of memory. They had watched the galaxy turn for billions of years, recording the rise and fall of empires, the birth of nebulae, the death of thought. They remembered everything, and now they remembered us. They had slept not out of weakness, but choice, to observe, to allow younger minds to grow without interference. But we, in our relentless digging, had broken the silence. We hadn't just reached Europa. We had touched its soul, and it noticed. To the Memnari, we were not explorers. We were intruders. And yet they did not destroy us. Not immediately. There was no aggression in their presence, only a patient sadness, as if watching a child stumble into a cathedral, unaware of the sacred ground they trespassed upon. My teammates kept humming, their tones merging with the chamber song. It was as though the Memnari were scanning their memories, drawing from their past, their emotions, their identities. But then came a question, not spoken aloud, but echoed in every cell of my being. Why have you come? And suddenly, I wasn't sure we had an answer. We were children. That's the only way I can describe it now. Children breaking into a sacred tomb with flashlights and questions, unaware of the history resting beneath our feet. Curious, brave, stupid. We came seeking knowledge, glory, truth. But we found something older than our dreams, and far less forgiving. I alone returned to the surface. The ascent through 20 kilometers of glacial ice was the longest journey of my life. It wasn't the climb that made it hard. It was the silence, the weight of what I had witnessed, the knowing. My team didn't follow. Not physically. Their bodies still kneel in cathedral beneath Europa's crust, eyes glowing faintly, faces relaxed. Not dead, but not alive as we understand it. They are somewhere else now. Their minds, their consciousness, their essence, now sings in harmonic resonance with the Memnari, a language older than stars, older than thought. They hum with the memory of civilizations that predate light. They are choristers in a choir that spans galaxies and eons. And me, I am the last speaker for the living. The final voice of the mission once called Stellar Seed, Europa. I am transmitting this message in a compressed quantum burst aimed at Earth Command, deep in the Martian relay network. It is not a scientific report. It is not a warning. It is a plea. Do not come to Europa. Do not drill deeper. Do not analyze the signal. Do not decode the harmonics. Leave the ice intact. Let the trench slumber. We came to discover. The Memnari chose to show us mercy. This time, and that is the part that won't leave me. It was mercy, not confusion, not weakness. Mercy. They let me go. They allowed one voice to return to the stars, to carry this truth like a wound. The Memnari are no longer asleep. They are remembering now, unfolding, reaching, not in vengeance, but in recognition. They see us for what we are, clever, impulsive, loud. Curious creatures who tear open ancient vaults and shine lights into sacred darkness, hoping to call it progress. We woke something divine. Not a god, no, nothing so simple. The Memnari are more terrifying than gods. They are history incarnate, patient archivists of creation. They watch the universe become itself. They know what comes next. And now they know us. I don't know if they'll stay contained beneath Europa's ice. I don't know if containment was ever real. Maybe they were waiting for a reason to rise. Maybe we were it. So I say this with what little strength I have left. Seal the boreholes. Burn the maps. Let Europa sing alone, beneath her frozen veil. Because if we return, if we dig again, we will not be met with kindness. The Memnari are awake, and the song they sing no longer welcomes guests.